Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday and it's time for another T-Hawk's 2 cents. I'm sorry that I haven't been on here for a while. I've just been really busy trying to get an exhibit ready, and so I haven't had a ton of time to get to my YouTube, but I've gotten a ton of questions and emails from you guys, so I've got a couple new videos coming out in the next couple weeks, so be on the lookout for those. Recently, I got a really interesting question that I never really even thought of, and so I wanted to do a quick little video about the different types of solders and the different types of metals. Thank you, Deb, for this question. So I hope that you guys all find this helpful, and I'll try to give you some tips and tricks on some different types of solders with different types of metals, and we'll just go from there. So the actual question was about hard, medium, easy, and extra easy solder. They were looking for a solder for brass, but they could only find like a hard medium solder, not an easy solder. And the question was, on super thin metals, is that going to affect the way that things solder together? And my answer is not really. So when you're soldering two pieces together, you have whatever they are. If you make sure that you have a really clean joint and all the contact points are touching, as long as you're heating those two pieces up together, you're going to get good capillary attraction. So there's hard, medium, easy, and extra easy solder in sterling silver and in gold. And basically, like, the hard solder will get capillary, you'll get capillary attraction at a higher temperature. Your medium solder will be at a little lower temperature. Your easy will be at lower than the medium, and then your super easy will be at the lowest temperature to get capillary attraction. And basically what the capillary attraction is the two pieces, the little molecules open up, the solder flows in, and then they close back in. So you get a really good solid joint. In my studio, what I do is I have lots of different solders. So like my extra easy, whenever I get solder, I always run a marker over it of a different color for each type of solder. So for extra easy, I use black. And then for easy, I will use green. For medium, I use blue, and for hard, I use red. And the reason I do this is in case I have like some piece of solder out and I'm making snippets. This way I don't confuse the hard with the easy, because it all looks the same. So there's a good way to mark your different types of solder. Also, you can get like brass solder, and then you can get copper solder. So this, it doesn't really come in hard or easy that I found. It just says wire solder for brass. And the question with this is, does it matter? Is it gonna do something different to the metal? And again, as long as you make sure that you're heating things up evenly, you shouldn't have a problem with it. So in my studio, I pretty much exclusively use silver solder because it comes in all the different heats, so easy, hard, extra easy, medium. And the reason that I use exclusively silver solder, even when I'm mixing metals, is because there's a couple of different things you can do. So with this is all bronze, and basically it's bronze wire that's been wrapped, and I soldered the whole thing together with silver solder, so you can actually see the wire, which I think is really cool. It's a really nice detail, so you can see details in pieces when you're using silver solder against a different type of metal. Like for this one I think is also bronze. Again, it's a bunch of little wires that I put together in cables and then rolled them out through the rolling mill, so you can actually see all of that work. So that's one reason you can use silver solder with other metal types like bronze, copper, and brass. And then also when you patina, or if this is, so this piece is just like kind of a practice piece that I use when I'm showing people how to set stones or like how to open up bezels or whatever. So this is both copper bezel, copper backplate, and you can actually see the seams. So one thing you will want to be careful of when you're using like silver solder on different metal types is you're going to want to make sure that you only use the amount of solder that you need, so you get a really clean flow of solder with really nice capillary attraction all the way around, so that you won't have to worry about cleanup. Because when you're using silver solder and you don't use the proper amount, like on this, I used too much solder, so it creates a lot of cleanup right there. You're going to have to go in and you're going to have to either sandpaper disc or find a way to polish all that extra solder out of there. so that you don't have like a solder spill. As it patinas over time, if you don't clean this up, even if it looks kind of polished, if you don't actually clean up all the silver and get all that off the surface, you're gonna end up with like, you'll be able to see it on the different pieces. So make sure you clean that up. And then all you do to clean it up is just I run a sandpaper disc over it, and it cleans up all that extra solder. So that is one way that you can do it. And I also want to show you that if you don't want to see the silver solder and you're using the proper amount of solder, like I use silver solder on this seam right here on the back plate, and then the bezel, this seam right here, you can hardly see any of that silver solder there. So as you zoom out, you cannot tell that it was a different type of metal solder. So there's lots of ways, like, and if you really are particular and you don't want to see that seam, you can use your bronze solder, your brass solder, your copper solder, and it'll match. But just, I guess, for me, it's not that big of a deal, because if you clean things up properly, you won't even see them. And again, I really like to mix metals a lot of times, so having those silver lines in there doesn't really bother me. I personally don't know if there's a rule about it or not, but for me, I don't mind mixing silver solder with brass, copper, bronze sheet. So really there are no rules, and the best thing I can say is if you want to use a different type of solder other than silver and you can't find, say, like an easy bronze solder, you can only find a hard bronze solder, is to practice on a different piece than your original piece before you actually get going. That way, if you're already along in your real piece, you won't ruin anything. You'll have a couple of practice rounds with some practice scrap. So basically what it comes down to is if you want to use silver solder on other materials like brass, copper, bronze, I do recommend going with gold solder for gold, but if you want to use silver solder on those other non-ferrous metals, go ahead and do it. It's not a big deal. And at the end of the day, as long as you have a really good join and your pieces are flush together and you're heating them up evenly, you should be able to get really good capillary attraction. And by using silver solder, you have those different levels. So you can solder something at hard, and then if you need to solder again, you can use medium. And then if you need to solder another component, then you can use easy, and you can work your way down. So always start with hard first and then work your way down from hard to medium to easy to extra easy. So yeah, that's pretty much like the answer to the question about different types of solder with different types of metal. As long as you're using silver solder with the non-ferrous, you can solder just about any type of material, and it works pretty good. Just make sure that you use the right amount of solder, not too much, so that you don't have to clean it up too much, and that you don't have like weird globs of solder hanging around. And if you do get globs of solder, just make sure that you clean that up and you get the whole surface completely clean of the silver solder, because eventually, as things patina over time, that silver will show up on your piece. So that's pretty much it for today. Thanks again, Deb, for your question. I hope that you guys all have a really great week, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in to T-Hawk's 2 Cents.